Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How are you guys doing today? Welcome to Ahmad's topic. Alhamdulillah. Today, I want to talk to you guys about short-term goals, long-term goals, and the ways that maybe you can set those goals for yourself and stay on track and stay realistic. How many of you guys have ever listened to a speaker stand on the stage and say about more than 50 times? Well, my brother and I used to do that as well, and we used to giggle, and I'm even guilty of doing that in church too. Yeah, back in the days when I used to go to church, when I was much younger, before I mu'alaf. So I changed my entire belief system. I don't believe anything now, because to say believe is to be a lie. I like the aspect of living as Allah would have me intend to live. And so that's why I don't think of Islam as a religion, and I'm not going to talk about religion at all. So I look at Islam as a way of life. All right, so let's start off with talking about short-term goals. Why are short-term goals important? Well, short-term goals can help us to learn how to organize and manage our activities and our lives. So whenever I think about short-term goals, I have to categorize everything. And you guys are going to learn to do this too if you haven't done it already. You're going to learn the differences between your wants, your personal wants, your personal needs, and you're going to be able to recognize the difference between someone else's personal wants and personal needs. Our needs are very important because our needs pertain to our life. So we need things like shelter over our head. We need to sleep in a safe place, where there aren't any insects able to access us while we sleep, like mosquitoes and other long brown insects that can suddenly fly on you and things like that. So that is a need. We also need air. That's really the first one, actually. I think if you were to prioritize that list, we need air, food, water, shelter. Well, that's 4 things already. It's easy, right? We need so that's shelter that we would live in. Then we need shelter for our bodies, so that's things like clothes. We need hygiene too, right? We need to learn about natural medicines and things like that as well, because natural medicines can actually be beneficial to us. So if we use pharmaceuticals, then what that is actually using artificial drugs. And drugs are, the difference between a medicine and a drug, in my opinion, is that a drug is man-made and medicines can come from any source. So I hope you definitely keep that in mind for the rest of your lives, because your life and the lives of your children are going to be conflicted with the paradigm of the way that the world at large wants to operate. So the world at large, the world which is created, so basically the world is not the earth. The earth is something totally different. The earth is what was made by Allah, and the world is something made by mankind. And if you live in mankind's world, then guess what you're living in? You're living in a world of sin. You're living in a world that's artificial. And to me, it's important to know the difference, because if you don't know the difference and you choose to live and operate in the world of the public instead of the world of the private, not the pirate, but the private, then things can go a lot better for your generations. You do need to learn how to deal with the public, simply because if you are to survive as a species, you must be able to negotiate and contract and make intelligent decisions with the full disclosure of information. And the full disclosure of information is what helps to make a contract binding. That is really interesting. I don't know how many of you guys have ever made a contract before, but I'm sure that you have, and maybe you didn't even recognize it. So a contract is even something as simple as a verbal agreement. So there are many forms of contracts. One of them is verbal, the other one may be written or typed, and that's the two basic forms of contracts that we commonly use, and you'll use that in your future too, all the time. So the difference between the spoken word and the written word are quite vast. The spoken word is very temporary unless you have a lot of witnesses which can substantiate your claim. But even that is limited compared to the written word. The written word can stay semi-permanently as well, but it's definitely capable of being more permanent than the spoken word. And that is simply because our technology at this time is very limited, and I think that can change if we enforce that change ourselves. So you never know. That's one of those things that if you were to put your contracts in a time capsule or something like that, it can still potentially be destroyed, because there are a high number of different or unknown energies which can potentially destroy such a time capsule, and that may be, a simple mini supernova from our star, the sun. That could easily happen. It's happened many times before. So yeah, the earth has been changed many times. So in our short-term goals, we need to make them realistic, as I was saying before. So what that means is that we have to set goals that are achievable. So say for instance, if I want to learn how to do a portrait, I just can't. It's not really a good idea. I mean, I probably could do it. A lot of people do it this way, is they just dive right in and start trying to draw the image from their mind. But if you have a little bit of guidance, it can go a long way. So what people who have guidance do is, when they learn how to do a portrait, they learn which eye to use for that particular picture. If they're going to use both eyes, they may be able to give it some perspective and separation. But for the most part, a portrait traditionally has been one-dimensional. It's just surface, and everything that is drawn on that surface is from the perspective or the creation of the artist themselves. But also there are other tools that you can learn, such as scaling. So once you learn scaling, then you can really put things into perspective in the portrait you're drawing, and it will be more correct. So, such as the width of the top of the head, the height of the top of the head as compared with the nose, or as compared with the eyes. So a lot of times what people will say is that the eyes are in the middle of the head. Of course, that's all relative, so it depends on the angle of the head, doesn't it? So those are some ideas which could help you out. And if the angle of the head is different, the jawline has to be drawn differently. The positioning and the angle of the ears must be drawn slightly differently. So I learned how to do portraits, which is to draw portraits at a pretty young age. I think after high school, I met a guy who was doing portraits when he was in high school, and he was able to draw a portrait from a face from 20 meters away. I mean, I don't know how he was able to do it, but, and he said he had bad eyesight. That is really amazing that he was able to do that, because he knew the basic construct and outline and scaling of the human structure, so to speak. So that's really interesting, you know. So don't set goals that are too far away. So we would take learning how to draw one step at a time. And the thing about art is that you must, first of all, learn to be very patient. That I think patience for me has been an accomplished goal, because you know, sometimes in my life I can be very impatient. Now that you know that you shouldn't make unrealistic goals, so like if you're drawing plans for a house, I don't think it's a realistic goal to draw plans for a house with you know, more than a couple of hundred square meters. And I'm also guilty of doing this. Actually, I drew plans for a 2,500 square foot mansion, if you will. And yeah, I gave myself plenty of room for a nice living room, bedroom, entertainment areas, a 4-car parking garage, and huge kitchen with the island in the middle, and a workout room, and a garden in the back, and swimming pool, and jacuzzi. Yeah, all of that stuff. So if you have the means to make that real, or at least work on your ideas, yeah, I think it's a great idea to be creative and to draw those kind of things out and create them on your free time, so that way you can plan thoroughly. But if you're actually drawing the plans out in order to make it your home in the near future as a short-term goal, then it's not really a good idea. You should stay within your budget. That's what they always say. Stay within your budget. Don't live beyond your means. Living beyond your means can actually keep you from reaching your goals, the short-term goals and the long-term goals. So live within your means, and maybe your short-term goal is to get a lot, put a house on it, you know, have a car, maybe even have a nice job, and maybe you'll get married, maybe you'll have children. Inshallah, if that's what God wills, then I hope you can accomplish that. Is it a good long-term goal? Yeah, so those kind of things would fit possibly right now into a long-term goal. Now, I also want to cover a little bit about playtime for as a short-term goal. So some of you guys may put gaming or something like that into your short-term goal. I think you can make that work for you because the gaming industry is actually huge. But when you think about the gaming industry as a market, however, then that kind of might fit more into a long-term goal and not necessarily a short-term goal. So this is why you really need to put a value on your game playing and your game researching, and follow the money, follow the information. So if this information is going to make you more knowledgeable so that you can achieve your short-term goals of being the best game player, then yeah, you should definitely research about it and learn about it. And if that research can pave the path, so to speak, or be a footstool or a step towards you achieving your goals of being an IT specialist, or maybe a computer programmer, or maybe even a game designer, yeah, then I would say go for it. But you need to put your heart into it and give yourself some room for failure, because if your expectations are way too high, guess what's going to ultimately happen? If your expectations are too high, you're setting yourself up for a greater fall whenever you fall. So whenever you take a step back and reassess the situation, make the assessment fit into your realistic goals so that you can achieve your short-term goals, so that you're going in the right pathway. If you want to move into a different area, such as sales or something like that, then you can integrate both your gaming and your sales together. So there are ways to do that. There are ways to achieve your goals. That you just kind of have to figure out how to do that yourself. You have to explore how to do that yourself. And if you're wanting to reach those goals, then I definitely suggest to manage your time. I know time is a concept, but time is a very valuable non-thing, because time is not a thing. Except that a thing is an idea or a non-idea. Well, it has to be an idea. Sorry, I meant to say a noun is a thing or a non-thing. In other words, the thing can be tangible or it can be abstract. So that's where I was trying to go with that. Cool. And the next is long-term goals. So whenever you guys are making long-term goals, you have to follow all of the same rules basically as the rules in the short-term goals. You have to always prioritize and reevaluate. So as you're prioritizing, you're making sure that you're doing things in the correct order so that you can achieve the best outcome. And wow, it's really that simple, guys. So if you find yourself falling or failing, that's good, actually. Why is that good? Because it's an important part of learning what not to do next time around. So falling is what's going to give us it's stressful, of course. Life is going to be a roller coaster for most people. If we find ourselves always going up and living high, we're really not going to understand what it's like to lose anything, and we may be actually distancing ourselves from our family and stuff. And if you want a really tight-knit family, don't forget about them. yeah, don't forget about them. Don't leave them behind. If you love your family, definitely do what you like to do, but don't forget about your family. And a lot of the wealthy elite have been able to achieve really great goals for themselves. And yeah, and they're the wealthy elite, like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates. They may have a lot of money. Do you really think that they have a happiness inside their heart? They don't. They don't have happiness inside their heart because they want total control of the world. And how do you think their relationship is with their children? Well, if you ask them publicly, they're going to say, oh, my relationship with my children are good. We have a good relationship. But when you actually come to think about it, they probably don't even see their children most of the time. I imagine if Warren has any children, they're probably already grown up and everything, but and have their own children. But wealthy people are, in my opinion, not as close to their children because they're always going to be focused on how to make their business grow. They're going to be thinking about numbers all the time and analytics and different strategies to make any of their businesses grow. And yeah, it's plural. If you want to have several businesses, you can do that, but what you have to always do is prioritize. I think if you do that, you're going to definitely be a better man or better woman and a Muslim, really, if any of you guys are Muslim and out there watching this YouTube video. So I think that's all for now. I hope you can take this with planning and with strategy and with care, concern, and love, and don't neglect something just because you want something for yourself, or you can justify it. So, well, it's for my family. Well, yeah, it might be for your family, but how do you think your family is going to perceive you? Are they going to perceive you as to be a successful individual? Are they going to perceive you to be a selfish individual? Are they going to perceive you to be an intelligent individual, a loving and caring father or mother? Just think about that kind of stuff. And I always suggest to try to do God's will instead of the will of mankind, and you're less likely to go wrong. So I'm going to leave the other topics for the next video. So the other topics we're going to include some information about Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and coronavirus, and the chloroquine medicine from the pharmaceutical agency that Warren Buffett owns. So check it out. Check it out on YouTube. Visit my YouTube channel at Ahmad Firdaus Cook, and please like and subscribe. If you're watching a ripped video, I don't know, some of you might be watching a ripped video. That's okay, because this is for educational purposes only. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.